Hey, Coach, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Hey, we heard Justin say last night a couple of times about how, he's overcome some things in his life, some adversity. How have you seen him overcome um, the lows that he hit, if any, with you, and what does that say about his personality?
I think it's one of the most important traits of being successful in the NFL. When you think about the guys who make it in that league, they can overcome adversity, and he's done that. Just maybe, looking for an example, I thought after the Indiana game, that was a hard game for him to kind of overcome. And then he turns around a couple of weeks later and plays the best game of his career against Clemson in the biggest stage in college football, really. And so, to see him kind of, work through those type of things, transferring over from Georgia to Ohio State, just to kind of walk into that locker room, we're a proud program, with a lot of guys who, think very, very highly of our culture. And to bring somebody in like that is not easy. And then to be a leader, the way he stepped in and kind of, grabbed onto the locker room early on. And then also, there was adversity just that, as he stepped into that role of, can he be what everyone thought he was going to be coming out of high school, which is a very highly recruited player playing at Ohio State. And there's a lot that comes with that and the expectations. And so passed all those tests and now on to the next thing.
What about his personality enabled him to handle that sort of pressure?
I think when you look at Justin, he burns hot on the inside, but you can't always see it. He's pretty even keeled. He doesn't, get real emotional. At least you can't see it from the outside. He kind of keeps it close to the vest. But I know that, just whether it was, when he first got here, coming off the Clemson loss last year, and now even just kind of going through this whole draft process, you can see he gets motivated quickly. His competitive fire gets lit quickly. And I know he's really anxious to get going here.
Dan Wiederer, Chicago Tribune.
Ryan, thanks a lot for doing this. I'm curious from your perch how you saw and oversaw Justin's evolution from an outstanding athlete into a guy who could be a mastermind as a pocket quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, he's very, very athletic, as you know, and he's big and he's strong and he's got running skills. But we didn't just run him in our offense, like you said. We have an NFL style offense, and he really grabbed onto that. I think the first thing for him was just the work in the classroom, understanding protections and route structures, defensive structures, how teams are trying to attack him. There was just some really good points, especially in this past year, the second year we had with him. I just one offhand that was just really well. He recognizes that, one of the guys is blitzing, and we actually side adjust the route, change the route on the run. He throws to Jeremy Ruckert for a touchdown. That was one example, just changing protections, seeing, in game. There was a game in the playing the Clemson game that we didn't even run going into that week. We kind of put it up on the sideline. It was a play that we had run, previously, but he was able to do that. And so I think that's part of his evolution was just, the mental part of the game. The physical part, I think he just became more and more comfortable in the pocket. And you can see that as the last couple of years, evolved.
You also mentioned the Indiana game, and others have mentioned that game as well. I'm curious what you think the lessons learned from that game were for Justin and the growth that he made from that's applicable to his continued growth as a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I think, for all of us at Ohio State, it was a unique season. And when you start to lose games and you don't have a lot of, body of work, and you have an opportunity to impress, whether it's for a Heisman race or to be a first round draft pick, it's just very natural to try to, force the action. And that's really what happened, and he kind of owned it, and we made that adjustment, moved on, and it really never happened again. And it was an anomaly. So, and I think maybe one thing that played into that was the first play of the game. We throw an 80-yard pass, and then on the second play we throw a touchdown, and it was like, okay, we're just going to roll on these guys. And I think maybe that's kind of what he expected, but that's part of the growing process. And the only way that you learn is by failing. But can you overcome that and then make sure things like that don't happen again? And that's what he proved.
Jason Leisure, Chicago Sun-Times.
Ryan, what did you think of the toughness he showed at the end of the season, playing through those injuries in the championship game?
Yeah, I mean, in 2 years, he missed really just a couple plays. One, he took a helmet to the knee in the team up north game, sprained his MCL, went out to the sideline, put a knee brace on, and the next play scrambled to his left to a 30-yard touchdown pass in the back of the end zone to Garrett Wilson. And then in that Clemson game, took one of the more vicious shots I've seen in a long time. And then the first play back, he comes in, rolls out, throws a touchdown pass to Chris Olave, and then never came out of either of those games. And I just think that that's his toughness. That's his competitive toughness. And when you're projecting somebody into the NFL, you better be tough. You better be physically tough and mentally tough. You're not going to be able to survive in that league if you're not willing to take shots, because you're going to take shots in the pocket and you got to sustain through a whole season. But then mentally tough, because you're exposed, and he knows that. He knows that from being at Ohio State, and I think that's where he's going to have a quick transition. But he's mentally and physically tough.
Adam Johns, The Athletic.
Hey, Ryan, I want to go back to 2019 when he transfers there. And just from an intangible sense, how did you see him connect with the teammates almost right away? How did you see him show that leadership? How did you see him connect with the coaches right away? Like, what type of jolt was provided to the team there?
He has a quiet confidence that kind of permeates around the locker room. You can feel it, you can see it. And I think when you get on the field, the guys believe in him because he can do so much. But he also really lives his life the right way. I mean, he's not all over the place. Really this whole season, it was him and his dog in his apartment, and he was at the Woody Hayes Center. I mean, that was it. And so I think he demands this respect of the team because of who he is, his character, his talent level, what he does on the field, but then also how he carries himself. And everyone has their own leadership style. I mean, he can get after you if need be, but he also can put his arm around you and connect with you that way and kind of pull guys along with you. So he'll do the same thing there. And it doesn't just happen overnight. You have to get the respect of the locker room first, and that's I know that's first on his mind.
Hub Arkush, Pro Football Weekly.
Hi, Ryan. Thanks for doing this. I know you shouldn't be asked to discuss any medical issues or anything like that with Justin, but I'm curious, was there ever a time when you were forced to adjust any schedules, procedures, practices, anything that you might normally have wanted to do to allow for, Justin's condition?
No. I mean, the only time we ever had to adjust anything was really leading up to the national championship game when he could barely get out of bed because of the shot he took in the Clemson game, but he still found a way to play in that game and actually play okay without really practicing. But other than that, I mean, he was one of the first guys in the facility every day, hardworking, and really never missed anything.
So, but being aware, I assume, of this epilepsy question or concern, nothing relative to that caused you to do anything special?
I mean, we were aware of it, but Justin was very, very professional and mature about it. He took his medicine, and we never had an issue.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Adam Hogue, NBC Sports Chicago.
Hey, Ryan. We heard a little bit about your relationship with Matt Nagy. I'm just curious what the background is there and how you guys know each other, and maybe some of the conversations that you guys had leading up to this pick.
Yeah, I mean, our relationship goes back to when we played each other in college. He was a quarterback at Delaware. I was at New Hampshire. We had some great battles against each other. And we've stayed in touch. And just, through, when I was in the NFL, he was in the NFL as a quarterback coach. And so we kind of stayed in touch that way. And then when he got to the Bears, he would call about some of our players, always really good. One of the better guys I've been around, just asking questions. And then even as early as, when Justin got here, he and I would talk about Justin a little bit. And I got to give Matt credit, Ryan Pace credit, everybody in the Bears organization. I thought they did an unbelievable job in this process, not only, asking all the right questions, but I think this is a great fit. And the way that they went about their business was really professional, and I feel great for them. But I hope our relationship can help along the way. Anytime anybody in the NFL asks us for access about our players, we try to do it. But it was great to have that extra relationship with Matt. And I know Ryan was a huge part of this as well. And they have a great staff. So I'm excited for the city of Chicago to see Justin Fields. And this is going to be a fun time to be a part of and watch from Columbus. But we're all Bears fans now, and really happy for Matt and for Ryan.
Chris Emma, 670 The Score.
Hey, Ryan, following up on that, there was a report that conversation you had with Matt Nagy this fall, and you used the term generational talent to describe Justin Fields. Can you confirm you said that, first of all, and just kind of how would you describe some of the conversations you've had with Matt Nagy in addition to, you mentioned the questions that he asked. What kind of questions did he ask?
Yeah. I mean, I recognized that early on, that Justin Fields has that type of talent. And that's exactly what the word I used when he got here was generational talent. I would share those things with Matt when we would talk, and he'd come visit. He would just, ask questions about a lot of our guys, but in particular about Justin would just, I can't even remember exactly all the details of it because it was so much conversation, but would just ask, about, his work ethic, who he is, his ability on the field, decision-making. I mean, all of the above. When you make a big decision like that, there's a lot of questions that have to get asked. And Mick Marotti, our strength and conditioning coach, is a huge part of that as well. In terms of giving information to the scouts and the personnel department. So, but again, unbelievable job, well done, and excited for the organization.
Mark Grody, 670 The Score.
Hi, Ryan. The Bears are saying, and Ryan Pace is saying that, that they're going to have a plan to develop Justin Fields. Do you think, though, that he would be a guy that would be capable of starting in the NFL on day one, or do you think that that's the wise way to go about it, that there's some development that still needs to be done before you throw him out there?
I think both. I just think that there's development that needs to happen. I think for all the quarterbacks when you look at them, and I think that's one of the things you look at in the history of the NFL and the guys who get drafted. Really interesting to me because when I was in the NFL and coaching the quarterbacks, I'd kind of go through this and study it. Now, being in this role, just kind of studying what makes a successful quarterback in the NFL, and I think having that development package for a quarterback when they first get in is critically important. And, but I also think it's kind of what the expectation is, there's going to be some learning along the way. There's going to be growing pains. And do I think he can play right away? Sure. Do I think he's going to be a lot better in year 3, 4, and 5? Absolutely. And I think that blueprint's out there. And certainly Matt knows that better than anybody.
Thank you.
Dan Wiederer.
Ryan, obviously last fall was incredibly unique, and it's easy to forget how unique it was now, but I'm curious what you witnessed in Justin and his desire to want to get the season going and his influence in allowing you guys to get to a point where he actually could play that 2020 season.
It was unbelievable to watch, certainly one of the more unique times in our country's history. But for Justin, very easily could have said, I'm just going to get ready for the draft next year. But he never flinched. He wanted to play. He wanted another year of experience. He wanted to compete and go beat Clemson and play for a national championship. I mean, that was right on his mind. And because of that, he fought for a season. I mean, he petitioned. He got on national TV. He spoke on ESPN, I think maybe Good Morning America. And, he wasn't reckless about it. I think that's what's really cool about it. I mean, he's really respectful, well thought out. And a lot of people followed him. I forget exactly how many petitions and signatures he got, but it was a lot. And I think that shows you his leadership. And he had an impact. And I think when you go back and look at this, maybe in 10 to 20 years, hopefully it's one of those things you go back on and shows you some early leadership on somebody who did something special, with his entire career.
Nathan Bard, Cleveland.com.
Are you there?
Yep, got you, Nate.
Sorry. I know you probably weren't able to extensively watch the Bears in recent years, but from what you know about Matt Nagy's offensive background with Andy Reid and everything. How do you feel like Justin's skills fit in with those concepts and what they want to do with that offense?
I think it fits really well. Matt comes from a great background, coming over from the Chiefs and what they do. I think they're really, really creative. Certainly study their film a lot and what they do. And I think, they're going to be able to accentuate what Justin does well. And there's a lot that goes with it. That's what's great about, that style of offense. It can go a lot of different ways and there's a lot of flexibility in there. So again, really fired up to see what that looks like.
We're going to take a couple more for Coach Day. Dan Hope.
Hey, Ryan, what does it mean to you, and what do you think it means for Ohio State to have two quarterbacks in 3 years be selected in the top 15 of a draft?
Well, I proud of that. But also it's what you do with the opportunity now. And Justin knows that. And so now, he's got to go about the business of, putting in the work and, building that reputation, the respect in that locker room so he can go have a successful career. And that's the idea. But it is exciting. I got to tell you, it's exciting to have, two guys drafted here in the last 3 years. I think it's great for recruiting. I think, it's an exciting time to be a quarterback or receiver at Ohio State. And it's fun. It's just fun to be a part of this and continue to recruit these people and their families.
Patrick Murphy.
Hey, Ryan. Justin hasn't had to sit behind a quarterback very often in his career. That sounds like it's the plan in Chicago. Knowing him as well as you do, how do you feel like he will handle the development process, the learning behind a starter ahead of him?
I think it'll be great. Yeah, I mean, the goal is to have a long career in the NFL and to grow and develop and build. It isn't to, start to, I got to be there day one and I got to get all this. I mean, there has to be a long-term vision on this. And I know that he understands that, he's played a year and a half or maybe a little bit more of college football. That's it. And so the ceiling's really, really high. I think that's what I'm sure everybody in the city of Chicago is fired up about. And that's what the Bears organization recognized. But part of this process for him is going to be to sit there, learn early on, learn from some of the other guys, and just keep building as much experience as he can, so that he can have a long career in the NFL, and that's the idea.
We have time for one more with Coach Day. Adam Hogue.
Yeah, Ryan, I'm just curious because sometimes one of the knocks you hear with Justin, one of the rare knocks is the methodical nature of some of his process and decision making. You're his coach, really more about that, and obviously you run an offense where it's a lot of vertical things downfield. It takes time to develop. So how much of it is part of the scheme? How much of it is legitimate? And like any quarterback jumping to the NFL, how do you think he'll handle the adjustment with timing? Because obviously everything's faster in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, he's super athletic, and he will adjust with what he needs to adjust with. That's the thing about him is if maybe it's not working, he'll get it solved quickly. I mean, the thing I always go back to is, he's never not succeeded in his life at what he's really set his mind to. And so, he was really, really successful at Ohio State. I mean, the numbers speak for itself and what he did. When that game picks up in the NFL, I'd be shocked if he doesn't pick up really, really fast and make those adjustments. Why? Because he can. I mean, he's really intelligent. He's really athletic, and really competitive. So, I mean, he'll get that really, really fast, and they'll train him in those areas. But when he was with us, his decision making and all that stuff was excellent.